Hello everyone, welcome back to 366 Days of Hope. My name is Pearl and I'm here to share our next topic, which is sodium. But a quick disclaimer, I am a personal trainer. I am not a medical doctor, so if you have any concerns whatsoever regarding your health, please make sure you speak to your provider. So sodium is an essential mineral. It is one of 4 electrolytes needed in the body. Potassium, we have sodium, calcium, and magnesium. But sodium has a 2-to-1 ratio with potassium, meaning that there is twice as many potassium as there is sodium. And that balance is very, very important when you look at the cell and how potassium enters into it and is put out of the cell, and how sodium enters and goes out through what's called the sodium-potassium pump. And I know I discussed this in the previous video about potassium. Sodium is used to conduct nerve impulses as well because it is a positively charged mineral. Also plays a role in heart disease, stroke, and blood pressure, which I'll explain here in just a minute. So some of the benefits that sodium has is it helps balance the sodium in and outside of the cell, which is very important because, as we know, kidneys generally have a hard time keeping up with excess sodium in the blood. When sodium accumulates, the body holds water to dilute the sodium, and that then increases the fluid around the cell, which is known as the extracellular fluid, as we talked about in the previous video. And that also then raises the volume of blood in the bloodstream, which means that when that volume increases, that applies a lot of pressure on the blood vessels, and over time that pressure can harden the blood vessels, which can cause heart disease, blood pressure, heart attacks as well, and stroke. This is why it is vital that sodium balances out how much water is in and outside of the cell, because every single time that pump opens to allow potassium in and potassium out, it also allows sodium in and out of the cell, which also means water can come in and come out at every exchange, which is very important. Now, we know that high concentration of anything always tries to flow towards the least concentration of things. So if there's more sodium in the cell, it's going to open up through the sodium-potassium pump and release that sodium to go outside, so that there maintains a perfect balance and ratio between the potassium and sodium levels. And again, this is very beneficial to the body because, remember, we want that equal part of 2-to-1 ratio of potassium. So potassium needs to be twice as much as sodium is in the body, because that is going to create the perfect balance. If it reverses and sodium gets higher than potassium, that's when we're going to experience more, high blood pressure, high risk of strokes and heart attacks, and affecting our cardiovascular health. So what causes a deficiency in sodium? Well, it's actually quite rare, since we have sodium in almost everything that we eat. And obviously, if you're consuming salt, then yes, you're going to constantly have it. And generally, as a society, we actually consume way more than we need. And so it's really important that we're aware of not raising that sodium level above our potassium level. Remember, potassium needs to be twice as much than the sodium levels. So hyponatremia is a term for low sodium in the blood. And generally, that can be due to excess vomiting or diarrhea, and or excessive exercise, like if you're sweating, right? Because you release salts that way. And if that happens over, a long period of time, you could experience things like heart failure, liver cirrhosis, but on a short period of time, you could experience things like nausea, maybe you'll have headaches, confusion, but on a worst case scenario, you could have seizures or go into a coma. So what causes an excess of sodium, also known as hypernatremia? Well, generally it happens in older adults that don't eat or drink enough, and so they could be sick or they could be vomiting a lot, so that can also increase sodium in their body. And also if there's a lot of water transfer out of the cell to dilute blood, then that could be because there's high sodium in the body. And of course, if there's high fluid, that can also mean that fluid could increase in the brain, which leads to seizures. And generally what people might experience would be, weakness, loss of appetite. Maybe they'd experience like intense thirst or confusion, or at worst they could have kidney damage. So what inhibits sodium? Well, diuretics actually inhibit sodium because you tend to increase the sodium loss, and you increase that water excretion, which prohibits sodium from being absorbed into the body. So what can you do to actually absorb more sodium? Well, glucose and fructose actually stimulates sodium absorption. You see, the glucose stimulates passive and active sodium transports in the jejunum, which, remember, in the lining of the cells, you have these connectors, and so glucose opens up these transports, right? And sodium is able to pass through, and that's a way in which it can be absorbed. So what are the 3 foods that have the highest content of sodium? Well, table salt, of course. It has 101% of your daily value in just 1 teaspoon. Pickled cucumbers have 81% of your daily value in 1 cup. And then you've got canned beans, which have 38% of your daily value in 1 cup. Well, guys, that's it for my research, and I will see you guys next time. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Take care. Bye.